2019, I got a phone call from a lovely chap called Tom Jennings. And he tells me that he's seen Pete in his bus on YouTube and he loves my videos, he loves the style, which is really kind of him. And he then goes on to say that he's bought a really famous old bus. And I think to myself, famous old bus, what would that be? Anyway, it turns out he's bought none other than the ex-Paul McCartney Wings Over Europe tour bus. That is a really famous bus. So he goes on to explain that he wants to restore it because it's in a bit of a state, and then he wants to do events with it, and he wants to sort of turn it into a stage and have bands play on the roof. And I thought, wow, amazing plans. He then asked me if I want to come down and do a bit of filming and sort of document the build of it, and I think this is a great idea. Anyway, then the dreaded COVID hits. So everything goes quiet, probably not the best time to meet up and do filming. So I think to myself, I'm going to leave the guide to it, and if we can work together in the future, that would be great. I get a few text updates to see that he is making some progress on the bus. But it turns out that Tom is quite a resilient man and a crafty bugger, because this year he messaged me to say, listen, the bus is actually finished. And it's going to have its debut presentation at the Birmingham NEC for the Classic Car Show. And I think to myself, first of all, I can't believe he's actually managed to do this, and that it'll have been some journey that he's been on. And also, I've got to go down there and see what this man has achieved. But first, a bit of history. In 1970, the Beatles had broken up, and Paul McCartney decided to start a new band called Wings. 2 albums and 2 years later, he decided to take this band on tour in Europe, and to do so he leased a 1950 Bristol KSW double-decker bus. The tour was relatively successful, and it ended on the 24th of August in Berlin, and it's at this point that Paul McCartney and the bus go their separate ways. The bus is then taken over by a tour operator which paints it in this garish mustard colour and puts it to work travelling all over Europe on sightseeing tours for the next 9 years. By now it's 1982 and the operator is looking to renew its fleet and wants to either sell or even scrap its old buses. It's at this point in the story that a chap called Roger White turns up of White Coaches, and he's come to see if the operator is getting rid of anything that is worth saving. He has a look at the buses, he sees the Bristol, and he asks questions about the Oslo destination blind that's still on the bus. He has a chat, and of course he soon finds out that he is looking at something quite special and totally worth saving. So he buys the bus right there and then. Roger restores the bus and spends the next 10 years putting the Bristol back into the spotlight. And during his care, it takes part in a whole host of events, TV shoots, and even rallies. These include Cilla Black's Surprise Surprise, several Great British Film Rallies, the Cannes Film Festival. It even transported VIPs to the London Odeon Theatre on Leicester Square. It was used for the BAFTA tribute to Julie Andrews and also photographed with Princess Anne on a rally in Scotland. But by 1992, it was time for our bus to be restored again. This time it was put back into the famous Wings Over Europe tour colours and taken to a Beatles convention in Holland the following year. This was to be its final major outing with Roger White at the helm, as the bus was then put up for sale with Sotheby's auction house as part of a rock and roll collection. The auction estimate for the bus is between £25,000 and £30,000, but sadly it doesn't ever reach anything quite near that at all. So instead, after the auction is finished, it is sold in a private sale for an undisclosed amount. So where to next? Well, the bus goes all the way to Tenerife, and it's parked outside of a cafe as a sort of rock and roll piece of history tourist type thing. Ultimately, the bus will spend the next 24 years on the island of Tenerife. But it's actually halfway through this period in 2007 that all these rumors start flying around on the internet saying the old Wings Over Europe tour bus has been rediscovered. And these rumors are all backed up by these images off of Google Street View, where you can see it sitting in a very sorry state at the bottom of this ravine on the island of Tenerife. But it would take another 10 years before it actually comes back to the UK. So it's at this point in our bus's history that a chap turns up called Justin James, and he actually manages to buy the bus and he sticks it on a ship and takes it all the way back to the UK. Now his initial plans are to have it fully restored and then do events linked with the charity he works for called Arms Around the Child. But sadly, none of these plans come to fruition. So he puts it back into auction a couple of years later, and this is where the hero of our story turns up, called Tom. I'm often called a complete madman for taking on several entire bus restorations by myself. But Routemasters, i.e. the buses I work on, are virtually all aluminium, so it doesn't really matter how bad they are from the outside, the core structure of them is usually in excellent condition. A Bristol from the 50s though is actually largely made up of wood, which is then clad with aluminium, and over time you can guarantee that the thing will be rotten as a pear. And that is why restoration projects like these really are not for the faint-hearted. But it's people like Tom with their endless enthusiasm and brilliant marketing skills that can actually pull projects like this off. But even so, and I speak from experience, I can say that this will not have been an easy ride. It does, however, make me even more excited to see the finished product and check out what Tom and his brilliant team have achieved.
Even at a motor show, I find myself standing on top of a bus, but it's not any old bus. Check out this beauty.